Welcome to Stellar Cycles, a podcast dedicated to showing each woman her intrinsic power to guide her life, her cycle, her relationships, and her dreams. I cover feminine energy, reproductive health, and all things related to being a potent and magical being that is woman. I'm your host, Alina, and today our topic is manifesting out of your feminine energy. The goal for today is to highlight my friend Rasheen, a master manifester and also the San Diego Book Club founder. We're going to be talking about how she developed her feminine side, became more receptive and intuitive, started book club, and is living her best life. First, I'm going to get into some current updates about me. Since my Getting Back on Track episode, I've really taken that to really motivate myself to throwing myself back into my routine, complete with a whole system that I designed in Notion to help me track my progress. Every day I have little fields that I fill out, like what time I woke up, my sleep score, my readiness score, and just a little checklist of things every day that I want to stay on top of. So it shows me my action items for the day, also my meal plan, my morning routine checklist, my evening routine checklist. So that's going to be a really great way to, number one, stay motivated and inspired to tick those little things off every single day, but then also in retrospect to look back and see how far I've come, all the things that I managed to get done. So feeling really, really good about getting organized, and also meal planning has been a huge part of that. I really took time this weekend to sit down, think what I'm going to be eating according to my phase that I'm in. I went to the farmer's market, picked up some produce, and kind of the whole day just spent prepping it and setting myself up for success this week. Another thing is we're enjoying a really warm, sunny fall in San Diego. I love it, hate it, both. Honestly, I'm so thrilled to be living in a part of the country that has such incredible weather, but I'm at the same time sad that it's not appropriate for those autumn and winter fits that I've been waiting for. So going to be waiting for the colder trips to Spokane, Portland, Canada to really pull out those winter fits. So yeah, just been staying really present with my routine, also planning for the next book club, which is going to be more of a Friendsgiving vibe. So very excited to have the potluck moment with everyone, see what everyone's going to bring to share. And overall, October's been a very social month for me. Very, very excited about that, but at the same time, like realizing how much time it takes away from me being able to do what I need to do. So I've been finding a lot of stillness and taking on mundane home tasks like organizing the supplement drawer, clearing out old food in the fridge, and just setting it up in a way where I can see the things that I want to eat that I purchase so that they won't go bad. That's been my updates, what I've been working on this fall. Let's get into the episode today. So the guest is my friend Rasheen Zamayar. She is an incredible woman, and I've learned so much from her in the short time that I've known her. I met her in my first book club meeting back in March. So without further ado, let me present Rasheen.
Hi, Alina. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. And I absolutely love having you at book club.
Why don't you tell us about where you're from, a little bit about your background, your cultural background?
Yeah, so I am Persian, Iranian American, and I grew up in San Diego, but my mom moved over here when she was pregnant with me when she was 18 years old.
18?
Mm-hmm. So they left during the Iranian Revolution. So it was kind of a stressful time. It still is a stressful time in Iran, and thank God that I was able to be born here in America. And so I feel really blessed to be here.
Yes, yeah, I can totally relate to that. Being from Ukraine myself, and just even now seeing what's going on over there, I couldn't be more both happy and sad at the same time, because, you know, you still have loved ones back there dealing with the oppression, the wars, things like that. But what a blessing that we got to be here and be able to help from here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wanted to talk because I always like to ask my guests about, first and foremost, the female cycle and how it pertains to them. So how did the women in your family approach the feminine cycle? Was it something secretive? Was it something open?
So Iranian culture in general is very secretive. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about our bodies. We don't talk about anything. It's almost like shameful. So I grew up in a very conservative family and didn't know anything about any of that. I had heard stories of this one ritual that when a girl starts her period, it is a ritual for her mom to slap her. And it's not like a mean slap. It's just kind of like
get ready for life.
Yeah. She's supposed to slap.
Yeah. Never heard anything like this.
It's not like she's angry at you. It's kind of like, yeah, bad girl. I guess it's time for you to be a woman, kind of an energy. And so I had heard my mom talking to my grandma about that. And I was so afraid because I didn't know what any of it meant. And of course, I couldn't ask. So I'm like, I think something's going to happen where my mom's going to slap me at some point, and I'm so afraid of this. So that's all I knew.
Wow. So there's that Persian cultural component. What about, since you grew up in the States, right? You grew up in California.
Yeah.
San Diego always, right?
Yes. Yes.
So then just knowing that, but then did you also go off and do any of your own research about what's going to happen? What are periods? Things like that?
No, not really. I mean, I guess in sex ed, they kind of touched upon it. And so I had heard from that, but I didn't do any extra research. Again, I felt a lot of shame around that area. So I didn't ask about it. I even tried not to think about it because it was like not to be thought about even. During sex ed, I remember learning some things and being curious, but not so much that I could actually ask my mom.
Mm-hmm. So what about when the time came? How did that go for you? Did you get the slap?
Oh, yes. I actually got my period really late. So I think I was 15 and my younger cousin had gotten it and we were like sisters. So, she told me. And so I was like, oh my God, is something wrong with me? Like she's younger than me a year and I still haven't gotten it. But again, of course, I didn't say anything. But yeah, when I was 15, sure enough, it came. And I think I hid it from my mom for a few days and I looked under the cabinet trying to find something because I knew of pads and then I couldn't find it. And so after about 2 days, I finally broke down and I was like, Mom, this has happened. And she just did like a light tap on me. And she was like, it's okay. Yeah, she was like, it's just more of a tradition.
Right.
So she helped me out.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
But you were just terrified of this premonition that it's going to be this horrible thing. That's crazy. So then for the rest of your first several cycles, how did you feel? Were you more prepared then? Did you feel lost? How did that go?
Yeah, it's been a learning experience. And I think even now I still learn from what my period means, what my hormones mean. Mm-hmm. So it's always a learning experience. I was just so lost back in middle school, high school that I didn't even know what I needed to know.
Yeah. And something kind of funny to note is that we are aligned with our cycles. So if we're going through something, I'll be like, I'm on my luteal phase. I feel crazy right now. And Rasheen is like, me too. I'm also on my luteal phase. And then we go through the menstrual and then we come out like new butterflies in our follicular phase. It's like, we can do this. So
that's why we scheduled the podcast today.
Yeah.
Our follicular thing.
Yes. Moving into ovulatory, feeling more vocal, feeling more communicative. So did you go on birth control when you were a teenager?
Yeah. So this is actually a crazy story that I haven't shared with you. When I was 16 years old, 16 or 17, so I had only had my period for a few years at that point. One day, it was around Christmas time, and the whole family was over, and I started having period cramps, and it got so bad that I went and laid down, and the pain got so incredibly unbearable that I started screaming, take me to the hospital. And I was not a girl who liked doctors or anything like that. So that was very out of character. So my mom took me to the emergency room, and after lots of testing and unknowns, they found that I had a cyst on my right ovary and that I had an ovarian torsion.
Oh, no way. There's like not very many stories that I hear about this. Even being in the ultrasound field, there's not many cases of torsion that we see, even though that's what we check for constantly in the pelvic studies.
Yeah, so I'm one of those textbook patients. So I presented to the hospital, extreme pain. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They needed to check several things like my appendix, whether it was unplanned pregnancy, all these things. And when they did the ultrasound, actually, they couldn't get any visuals. And it's because my ovary had enlarged so large because there was blood going in and it was twisted so it couldn't flow out. So they couldn't actually get a visual on the ultrasound. So they had to go in with surgery to take a look at it.
Wow. How old were you at this point?
16 or 17.
Wow.
So very young, and while I was still just going through puberty, really learning about myself, and having to go through this was pretty traumatic. And so, yeah, they went in, and once I came out of surgery, they said that it would be best for me to go on birth control to regulate my hormones and all sorts of things. So that's why I started birth control so young.
Wow. And that's 1 or 2 years after you started your cycle, and already you had such a big problem.
Yeah.
Did you have any sort of lump or bulging out because your ovary was so big? No?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't physically see it on the outside. I just knew something was terribly wrong. And every time I mention this to a doctor, they kind of stop and they say, wow, that is the most painful thing that somebody can go through. And it really was. They had shot me up filled with morphine, and I was still crying from pain. It was so bad. But thank God I survived. And it did start me on my journey with birth control. And, fast forward many years, I then decided that I didn't want to be on birth control anymore. So probably like 5 years ago, I stopped birth control.
Nice. So you were in high school, going to college. How did you decide what field you wanted to go into?
I've always loved the sciences, just had a natural aptitude for it. So when I got to college, I decided that I would be a biology major. It came so easily to me. I just understood it. So I did really well in the biological sciences. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do with this degree? So, I thought about just being like a lab tech or working in research and medicine. And I was just kind of going through it in my head. And it's kind of a weird story. At the time, I was working at the Italian restaurant. It's the Italian.
Is it Bencato? No. There's so many Italian restaurants.
The one that's like a chain.
Olive Garden.
So, okay, during college, I was waiting tables at Olive Garden, and it was hurting my wrist because those plates are so heavy. And so I was driving home, and I was going to college, and I was a biology major, and I passed by a Lens Crafters. There was a big sign that said, now hiring. So I'm like, that should probably be better for my wrist. So I went in, and I ended up being the assistant of the optometrist. And after some time, I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I'm doing all the work here. And so this job seems pretty easy. So maybe I should just be an optometrist. And literally that's how I decided.
Wow. So what is the application process like for optometry? Do you have to take the MCAT or things like that?
Yeah, it's called the OAT. It's just like the dental test, the DAT, I believe it is. So yeah, after I graduated with my bachelor's in biology, I started studying for the OAT. Then there's only 16, at the time, there was only 16 optometry schools in all of the United States. So I think they accept like 1 out of 1,000 applicants.
Okay.
So it's very, very difficult to get into. Actually, this is how my manifestation story started. I had watched The Secret, and because I knew how difficult it was to become an optometrist, I'm like, maybe I should try this manifestation. So as I was working as the assistant for the optometrist, patients would ask for his card, and as I would hand it to them, I would pretend like I was handing them my card. And as I would walk down the hallway, his diploma was on the wall, and I would pretend that it was my diploma on the wall. And I kind of just would visualize myself being an optometrist. And actually at the time, there was only 2 optometry schools in California, which were the most difficult to get into, Berkeley and Fullerton. And I was like, man, like, am I going to be able to get into these? Well, something prompted me to keep looking, and I really wanted to stay in California. And the exact year that I was applying, a brand new school opened up called Western University of Health Sciences College of Optometry. And I was like, bet I would have better chances here since the school is so brand new. And sure enough, I had my application process and they accepted me. So
wow, that's awesome that you just slid right in there.
yeah. Like, what are the chances that There had only been 2 optometry schools for 50 years and plus, and then all of a sudden the same year that I'm applying, there's a brand new school. So it was really nice, and I got to go to a brand new school, brand new facilities. Everything was high tech. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I do attest to that power of using your imagination for the best case scenario outcome rather than worrying like, oh my God, I'm not going to get in. Oh my God, I'm not good enough. Kind of the same thing for me with ultrasound school. There was maybe 14 spots in the program and about 50 or more applicants. And all of them are really good students, right? So you're really in competition. But even back then in 2018, I was visualizing myself getting the call, saying yes to entering the program, visualizing myself going to the classes. And you're really using your brain to help you get to that outcome.
Yeah.
How long was the optometry school?
So optometry school is 4 years. And yeah, it's a very grueling process, 4 years of, I think it's an equivalent to 30 or 40 units per semester. So you were in class from 7 a.m. till 11 at night, and there's no holidays, no weekends, nothing like that. So it was like the Olympics for your brain, as I like to say.
Grind mode, for sure.
Fully in my masculine.
I believe it, because you're out here, you're hustling, you're like, I need to make this career happen for myself. Coming out of optometry school, becoming a practicing doctor, what was your personal approach to healing people and their vision?
The biggest reason that I wanted to go into it was to help people. I just naturally am a healer. I just feel it. So anytime someone's sick, anytime someone needs to talk, I was always the one that wanted to be there. So it's just the perfect mix of being able to be that for your patients and being able to support the community and at the same time fix their vision.
Mm-hmm. So what's the most common problem that people come in with?
I would say myopia. So myopia is nearsightedness. Mm-hmm. And that's what I have. Yeah. So you can't see far.
No, I got glasses at age of 10.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yes, I have to tell you the story because I was an avid reader throughout my childhood. We did have a TV, but it only had the church channels on it and stuff. No Disney Channel, no Nickelodeon, none of that. So what did we have to entertain ourselves with was books. So both me and my brother got really bad vision because we would sit and read until it was dark and straining our eyes and stuff. Youngest brother never got affected with that. But my dad also had vision problems. He had to get LASIK twice. But I remember telling my mom, take me to the doctor. I can't see. Everything is blurry. And she was like resisting it. And then finally took me in. And the doctor was giving me those little slides, right? And I was just like, nope, can't see that. And she's like, okay, I'm going to have to prescribe you glasses. My mom's like, you're lying. You're not. And I was crying in that office because...
Why did she think you were lying?
I don't know. I think she didn't want to believe that there's something wrong with me, And I remember getting my glasses and I thought I looked so good in those glasses. I loved it. I showed up to church with my glasses on and my friends made fun of me. That's like part of the Slavic culture is like, oh, if you have a disability, like that's how they see it. But I loved my glasses. I loved how clearly I could.
I love that. I love that you're like, I don't care what you guys have to say, but I look great.
Even back then, trust me. Like, yeah. So there's that. And then at 12, I got on contacts.
And then doing contacts for a long
time. And from 12 to 24. So 24 is when I got LASIK and it freaking changed my life.
Yeah, LASIK is amazing. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are scared to get it because they hear of the horror stories or something of like the laser going wrong or something.
LASIK has been going on now for 30 years. I think we're at that place in history now where we know that it's very safe. It has a 99.99 happiness rating. I mean, yeah, of course, it can be scary because you're laying there with your eyes open under a laser, but it's quick and they really do a good job for checking to make sure you don't have the problems that could be a problem down the line. So those horror stories that you might have heard of were things that happened back in the day when they didn't have the proper tools to measure the thickness of the cornea to see if it was going to hold, because they have to take some of that tissue off. So that's when things go wrong.
Yeah, I flew to Portland actually and get my LASIK from Dr. Brian Will, who has been practicing for like 30, 40 years. He was the one who did my dad's LASIK. So when we were still in Ukraine, my dad actually flew to the United States in 1998 or something, or 2001, to get LASIK done specifically by this guy. And I went to the same guy And they were truly like family friends. I felt so taken care of. It was truly the easiest procedure I have ever done in my life. Easier than going and getting a cavity filled.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad you had a good experience. Most people do. I actually worked in a LASIK center during my clinical rotations. And so I was the doctor who checked the post-op. So patients would come in the next day after their LASIK, and I would see if everything was okay. And oh my God, I loved those patients because they'd be like crying. Like, you can see, this morning was the first time in my life I woke up and I didn't need my glasses. So it is a beautiful thing that we've reached a place in history where we can provide that to people.
So what does your daily work consist of now?
I've cut down on my practicing, so I only practice 2 days a week, and I go into the office and I see anywhere from 10 to 30 patients, depending on the day.
30?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No.
Is it like a 5-minute appointment?
Yes. Okay. When you're getting to 30 patients, it's a high, low, 1 better, 2 better. Are you going blind? No. Great. Fine. So luckily I've been practicing for a while and I have spidey sense, sixth sense. So I can pick up on most people are healthy. They just need a new prescription for glasses, new prescription for contacts. But then, there are those fishy ones where they come in and you're like, maybe I need to do some more testing. And thank God I was so connected to my intuition because I've ended up finding some things that have prevented them from losing their vision. Things like glaucoma or retinal detachment.
Yeah. What do you kind of hope to accomplish in the future with optometry and with other things for your career?
Yeah, I think I do see optometry in my life long term, but in small doses. Clinical practice is pretty grueling. Seeing 30 patients, I'm there 10 hours. I get really tired by the end of the day. I feel like a shell of a human almost because it's just you give and you give. But I do enjoy the practice and helping the patients. So I actually see myself doing it well into my 80s, like leaving my house, going to hang out with my patients for like a day or maybe some part-time, like 4 hours, 2 days a week or something like that. So that's kind of what I see. I definitely would not do it full time. It just drains every ounce of femininity in my body and just puts me into my masculine energy. And I don't feel at my optimal or at my healthiest version when I'm in the office for that many hours a day.
Yeah, I feel like in any healing modality, whether you work in the hospital, whether you work in an outpatient clinic, optometry, dentistry, it does take so much healing energy that you really have to remember to fill up your own cup, right? So you can come back and show up and be very present with your patients and things like that. Let's head into your journey with manifestation. I know you touched on it a little bit, but I just want to ask, how did your family react to it or people around you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people around me have started to label me woo-woo. My family is pretty open-minded. They've watched The Secret with me, and they believe in it as well. I'm just very passionate about it, and I want to learn all about it, and I implement it in my life every single day. So I'm constantly reminding them of it. And so I'm sure they might feel maybe a little annoyed by me sometimes. But other than that, it's been a great journey. Because I think when you talk about it with somebody, you'll see a little light go off in their eye that's like, oh yeah, I kind of do remember that I have this power.
I like that you use the word remember because I feel like a lot of the things in life, we're not actually learning them, we're remembering them because they're all innate within us. And just the way that society is and conditioning, we tend to forget that we have these intrinsic powers. So remembering is a really good word.
Yep.
For those listeners who don't know what The Secret is, can you describe it real quick?
So The Secret came out, I think, in like the 90s or early 2000s. How I was introduced to it was literally on a CD. It was a DVD. And, a lot of people, when you talk about The Secret, they're like, oh, I read the book, but I've never read the book. It's a documentary that I watched. Did you watch the documentary? Did you?
No, I listened to the audiobooks.
So I loved the documentary. I'm pretty sure that's how it originally came out, and then they put it into a book. So it's just a bunch of people who knew about The Secret, had studied The Secret, and they were interviewed. And they just talk about what they knew about this secret. And the secret is manifestation, the law of attraction. And so it was really the first time, I think, in human history that something like this went mainstream. And it had a profound effect on my life because as a child and growing up in my family, I would say they are kind of negative, or, they escaped war.
Yes.
Lived in poverty. So I can see why they had those patterns. But as I was growing up, they instilled that kind of mindset in me. So I found myself to worry a lot, have background anxiety, depression, and overthink a lot. And so when I was introduced to The Secret, it really shifted my energy and how I viewed the world.
Yes, I agree with you. I think a lot of immigrants, especially ones who escape such horrific circumstances, it's really hard to just switch to a different belief system, So even though you're in a new land with more opportunities, you're still kind of always watching your back.
Yeah.
Right? So you did give us your example of how you used The Secret for getting into optometry school, but what other ways did you implement it into your life?
It's been a slow process. That happened with optometry school, and I was like, wow, I think that I manifested this. And then you kind of forget again, and then you go into a rut, and then something would happen, and somehow I would remember it again. So yeah, as time has progressed, I find myself manifesting more and more. And I do it for the littlest thing, maybe a cup of coffee. If I focus on having that, somebody will bring me a cup of coffee. And all the way up to I manifested the apartment that I currently live in 3 months. So, yeah. And it wasn't like I was really trying. I visualized it maybe 2 times or 3 times and now living in it.
Yeah. Tell us about how you manifested that guitar player for the La Jolla book club meeting.
Oh my God, it was so crazy. So what happens is when you're constantly working on your vibration, you raise your vibration and then you naturally just have an idea and then it just simply manifests. Like you don't really try anymore. And we were having a book club themed Italian summer nights, and I got this kind of idea, or I don't know if you brought it up or it just came up, and we were like, how cool would it be if we had either a violinist or a guitarist? And I was like, yeah, that would be cool, but the price point was too high. And so anyways, I go to work the day before the actual event, and I'm talking to one of my patients, and he's telling me about his glasses that he needs and how he has a very specific length where he needs his glasses to be at. And I'm just really focusing on the numbers, doing the calculation. And he had mentioned I'm a Spanish guitarist master. And again, I was focusing on the optometry aspect.
I didn't really catch it.
No.
Like, yeah.
No, just right. And then it was like time slowed down, and I was like, no, right. And I'm like, wait, what did you say? And he's like, yeah, I'm a Spanish guitarist. I'm like, I'm looking for a Spanish guitarist for my event tomorrow. Would you be able to come to my event? And he was like, sure. And ended up coming. He's amazing. Such a sweet guy.
It was incredible, honestly. Like, he added so much to the vibe, just, plucking away on his little guitar. It was literally perfect. But yeah, that's literally an example for you guys of manifestation, of things just dropping into your reality when you're just kind of like focusing, and you weren't just like focusing on it all day. You just kind of like released it to the universe, and then the universe delivered.
Just delivered it. Yeah.
Like an Amazon Prime. Exactly. So were there any hurdles that you had to overcome, like your personal beliefs that were already rooted in you, like anxiety, other experiences maybe that didn't go well that you really had to overcome in order to fully dive into this new way of living?
Yeah, of course. You always have negative beliefs that almost try to like sabotage you, I'd say. So especially the patterning of what you grew up with, like say the belief I have to work hard for my money. A lot of us have that. That's deep in there. A lot of people feel like you need to work hard for your money. So how do you deprogram that? I think it's just a lot of self-work a lot of awareness. So every single day when I wake up, I first meditate and then I journal. So when I journal, I'm very aware of what my limiting beliefs are, what keeps coming up for me. And so I go through and do like a mini therapy session for myself. So it's like two sides of me. The side is complaining about something and the side is like, oh, well, what's the belief behind it? Is this true? So I'm constantly doing this work within myself. And yeah, other things like breath work, and I've done everything, I feel like, to try to delete those limiting beliefs.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, manifestation, it's not all just rainbows and butterflies. It's a lot of having to work on also the inner resistance that your ego is, it's always trying to keep you comfortable, right? So that you don't grow out of your comfort zone. But manifestation, a lot of it has to do with breaking down those beliefs and that resistance within you, because I feel that way too sometimes. On one hand, I'm visualizing and believing like, yes, I can do this, but on the other hand, the inside part of me is like, no, you can't have that. Who do you think you are? And it's like a lot of it has to do with breaking that part down and truly looking within and looking at what's blocking me from doing this, because manifesting is really how we were meant to live, right? God instills in all of us a creative power to create our life, and if we're made in his image, who is a creator, then why wouldn't we have the power to create our lives and guide them? So let's lead into feminine energy, because I think you're truly not just a master manifester, but you are such a beacon of feminine energy to all of us around you. So when did you realize you were not operating in ideal feminine energy?
I think it goes back to when I was working full-time as an optometrist and I was managing the store, and I was really desiring a partner, and there was a lot of blocks around that. I wasn't really calling in the right type of men. They were just super out of alignment, and it actually happened by accident because of the pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, the practice that I was working at closed down. So I lost my job. I got laid off. And I had been working for a while, so I had savings, and I was like, I'm going to take this as a break. And it was a little sad, but I just kind of rolled with it. Well, as soon as I lost my job, all of a sudden, within a few days, I had all these men being magnetized to me. And a woman that needs to be taken care of, right? So before I would go in on these dates and be like, I'm an optometrist, and I was probably coming off from work and I'd been making all these decisions. And so I was really operating in my masculine, and it was really acting as a repellent for the masculine. And I didn't understand, because I'm like, why don't boys like me? And I just couldn't understand why. And all of a sudden I lose my job and guys are just flocking to me. And I'm like, what's so funny? I is going on.
Something to say about that too, because when I was really in my masculine energy, I would go on dates like bragging about how good I am at studying, how I'm gonna have this crazy ultrasound career. I thought that my independence was gonna impress them, but it really kind of doesn't, because then it's like, oh, what am I here for then?
We just don't know. And I didn't know that it's not that they don't like it. It's just, I don't know how the masculine really works, but it's an energy, and they're drawn to a soft energy and a light energy, and they don't want to hear about every accomplishment. Maybe they feel outshined. I don't know exactly, but it was kind of on accident. And I'm like, there's something here, because I had enough self-awareness where I'm like, what is it about me losing my job that's creating this magnetization of the masculine energy? And I started to really think on it and meditate on it and consume more content around that and read more books around it. And all of a sudden the light was shed on it. It's like, oh, okay, so this is a thing. So I got super into it. And now you don't have to lose your job or not work at all to get a boyfriend or whatever, but it helps. It was what showed me, so now I have a job. I do lots of masculine things, but I was still able to call in my masculine.
So what resources would you say helped you to increase your femininity?
I followed a lot of femininity coaches on Instagram and would just kind of watch their content. And then on YouTube as well, one that comes to mind, her name is Mina Irfan. She's really good. And Alison Armstrong, absolutely love her. She wrote the book, The Queen's Code, and that helped me a lot as well. She is a woman who studied men for, I think, 30 years. She's a clinical psychologist and
be out after like one. It's a lifetime journey of this is the opposite sex that we have to live with and do everything in life with. So that's awesome. We'll have to put that book, Queen's Code, as recommendations for our listeners. What did you end up changing about your life? So getting laid off was obviously the big one, but what other things did you change about your life to help you become more feminine?
So when I was in my masculine, I was operating from my logic and my brain. So it was like, okay, I need to wake up. I need to set my alarm. I need to make these decisions. And so now I didn't have those things to do. So I and I guess this came out of my intuition. I started playing a game with myself. Since I had nothing to do during my day, I would kind of let my gut lead me. So I would say, okay, so what are we going to do today? And I would randomly just grab a bathing suit and go in my car and go to the beach. I started to learn to tap into that kind of silent intuition inside of me and flow. It's kind of hard to describe, but you don't make plans. You kind of just flow. You kind of let the wind blow you. If a friend calls you and says, let's go grab lunch, you say, okay. And you have all this space in your day. And it can be quite uncomfortable because you're having to really sit with yourself and not have these to-dos and not be distracted and really just be in tune and say, okay, like I'm just going to sit with the space really. And I find that a lot of the women who are in their masculine have a difficult time with this. What are we doing next? Okay, what's going to happen? What's the plan? Who's going to be there? It's all so too much logic. And it takes a level of surrender and trust. Like, it's going to be okay.
And that's kind of the thing that's the most uncomfortable, I think, when you're starting out to change anything about your life is you have to be painfully present, right? And that's so hard for most of us, even with Jessa, the period and menstrual wellness coach that I interviewed a few episodes ago. I was like, what's the starting point for people who want to heal their cycles? And she's like, you have to slow down. You have to be present because that's the root of femininity is just that flow state,
Yeah. You just sit and you be with yourself. And sometimes you go in nature and you just watch the leaves and watch the clouds and get off your phone and, spend time with yourself. And that stillness is where the magic starts to emerge. The femininity starts to emerge in that stillness.
Yeah. So how about now? How do you continue to nurture your femininity now and keep that masculinity at bay?
I'd say boundaries. So I have a lot of boundaries with work. Of course, they always want me to come in more and I feel bad and I know they need the help. But no, I have the boundaries. I only work these days. And then on my other days that I'm off, I flow. And I just sit in the stillness. And it sounds kind of odd, but that's just where I feel the most comfortable, where I feel the most happiest, most fulfilled, most healthy. And I have that beauty practice.
How has that helped your anxiety instead of make you more anxious, like not knowing what you're going to do next?
Yeah, I mean, I used to have trouble with anxiety and I just don't anymore. That level of surrender where you just trust that wherever you're guided to, trust that there's something there watching you, God, the universe. When you have that level of trust, then it's easier to not have anxiety because you know that A, if something bad happens, you'll be able to handle it, and B, there's a learning lesson in that.
Yeah. And I know this sounds so cliche, but truly everything does happen for a reason. You can't escape those things. You can worry about it all you want, but it's still going to happen to you because it's part of your journey and you just have to take the lesson that comes out of it.
Yeah. And honestly, even if you try to control or resist, if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. And it's better to just let it happen and then ask yourself, well, what's the lesson here? what can I change in the future?
Absolutely. So let's talk about book club, because that's where we are connected currently. And I just want to get into the history of book club a little bit. Like, how did the idea come to you? What were the early days of book club like?
Yeah, so when I got laid off, I had all this space and time. And so what did I do? Well, I started going out and partying a lot. And
Everyone should know that.
yeah,
I think everyone can relate.
yeah, so I was out a lot. I was socializing a lot. And I noticed that I felt really bored with conversation. It almost felt like nobody had really anything deep to talk about. They just wanted to talk about other people or celebrities or something to complain about. And I loved going out and socializing and dancing and listening to music and stuff. But that aspect of the conversation was really getting to me. And I think I just was like, what is there? And there should be something more, is kind of like the thought that was there. And book club, it's actually really crazy because I literally woke up one morning and it was like the strongest, loudest urge. And it said, I'm going to start a book club. And I literally took out my phone on my notes page and I just started typing book club, rules of book club. And I filled up a whole page of, like, it just flowed out of me. And I was meeting with my girlfriend Gabriella that night for dinner and a few other girlfriends. And I was almost kind of nervous to bring it up. I don't know why, but, well, I know why. So I've always been pretty shy and book nerd, studious. I don't like to speak in front of people. I hate public speaking. I mean, now it's different, but back then I really hated it. And I didn't really put myself out there. So I went to dinner with my girlfriends and I kind of mentioned it shyly. And Gabby and a few other girlfriends were like, oh my God, we'll join your book club. We totally want to read books. And I was like, really? You would read books with me and like hang out? And they're like, yeah. So the early days, it actually spread really fast. And it pretty much consisted of meeting in my living room apartment. And I would just bring a bottle of wine and we would pick a book and we would all hang out and talk about the book.
Yeah. And then how did you end up growing it to what it is now? I mean, we just had our biggest meeting ever. I think it was something like 70 people came, which, you know, everyone is still talking about that book club. But what was your method for growing it, getting the word out?
Honestly, my feminine energy. I didn't really try. I just enjoyed it. It's my passion. I love to read. I love the idea of community and bringing people together and discussing ideas and having deep discussions and different topics to discuss. I just enjoyed it. And I think because my passion for it was so high, it radiated. And I didn't even have a social media until last year. And I had lots of people every month come. It was just word of mouth.
Yeah, I think that's a huge testament to when you just let joy and passion lead whatever you're doing, it's just going to naturally magnetize the right people into that group.
Yep, exactly.
So how's it going currently?
I love it. It's growing. There's definitely next steps. I'm implementing all the things that I've learned about surrendering and just trusting the process, not getting too ahead of myself. And just letting it flow. I'm excited for it to grow. If it continues to grow, if it doesn't grow, that's fine too. I'm just happy to serve the community and have a great group of people. I mean, we have amazing people in our book club. I met you through book club. And just the people that show up, I don't even know where they come from. They come in and I'm like, where did you come from? You're like an angel, like just like Alina.
They're just also looking for a group of people that they can have these deeper intellectual conversations with. And I'm just so glad because San Diego is a party town for sure. I also really struggled in my first 2 years here because the bar scene isn't really my thing. I always felt so out of sorts going to any of those events. The book club has truly become a home for me. And I've also met so many amazing people through you. So very, very lucky to be working with you on it now. And I think it's just only going to get better and better for sure.
I know. I love having you be a part of it. I love bouncing ideas off with you. And really that vibe attracts your tribe saying is so true. It just attracts the people that you want to hang out with.
Oh, so I also wanted to talk a little bit about your relationship, because you are in such a, at least what it looks like from the outside, like such a great relationship that you seem so happy in. And obviously I didn't know you before. When I first came to the book club, Rob was there with you already, you know, so
Yeah.
we're going to get into it. I just want to ask you first, why did your past relationships not really work out for you? What was the common denominator that you kept seeing?
Yeah, I would say definitely my past relationships were nothing like the relationship that I have with Rob. They just weren't right. It just never felt right. It never was right. It never worked out. A lot of heartache, a lot of, whether it me not seeing it be a fit or them not seeing it be a fit. In my younger years, a lot of it translating into my worth and feeling like there must be something wrong with me. And, you know, once I figured that out and realized that's not the case, you know, things changed a lot. But yeah, it was just a lot of what Alison Armstrong would say is kissing frogs or whatever.
Something I want to touch on is that when you're in those wrong relationships, they really do hurt. It's a lot of pain. And I think it's your body and your soul and your spirit trying to tell you this is not for you. But we fight. We try to keep it going. We're like, why isn't this working? Stay with me, right? Instead of just gracefully letting it go and be what it is. Do you want to tell the listeners about how you manifested Rob?
Yeah. So I was really desiring my masculine counterpart, my soulmate, just somebody that felt like right to me. And I felt a little lost. I took a year to just be single and just be with myself. And in the meantime, I had been really visualizing and journaling on it. Every new moon, I would do a new moon ritual, and I would sit, you know, light a candle, sit with my journal, and just write exactly what I wanted. So just everything that I want.
As detailed as
possible, how I wanted to feel, what I wanted them to look like, just all the things. And sometimes it would be pages and pages. And I ended up going to Burning Man last September with my girlfriend Gabby. And in that space, I had a lot of, I'd say, downloads or realizations about what I wanted. One thing about people who go to Burning Man, they say the playa provides. So the playa is the land. And it's crazy when you're out there because you'll think, oh man, I'm thirsty. And somebody will just hand you a bottle of water. So if you don't believe in manifestation, you go to Burning Man and this is why people are so obsessed with it, is the playa actually provide. And I got really rooted with what I wanted there and came out of it just knowing what I wanted. And just 3 months after that, I met Rob. And the day before I met Rob, I had journaled, thank you, God, for now that I have found my soulmate.
Wow. Wow. So you just had this feeling, and I think this is a big secret to manifestation too, is just knowing that it's on its way, right? Yeah. Releasing the how, why, where, when, and just like truly trusting that, literally like winning the lottery, you know, there's going to be a little bit of time between winning it, knowing that you won, but then also until that check actually hits your account, right? But you still know that it's on the way, and all that trusting energy.
Yeah, you just know that it's on the way. You know that it's already here, actually. If you Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about the quantum field and how all possibilities exist. And so there's a version out there that already has what you want, and you just bring that vibration to you. And so at that point, I had been single for a year. I don't think I had even been with a man for a year, but I can feel his presence with me. And it's so crazy because now when, you know, I'm with Rob, I'm like, oh my God, I felt you before you were even here. Like I felt it. And you have to get to that place vibrationally before you can manifest it in the 3D.
Yeah. So what was the actual meeting him like? And then the early stages of dating for you guys?
Well, of course, you have that voice in your head that wants to sabotage it or overthink it or try to like
Talk you out of
it. Yeah, exactly. And again, I was just very unattached, and I met him in a jacuzzi.
Which is so funny because you guys love to be in the hot tub. We love come and hang out with you.
So he was there with some friends. I showed up with some friends, and at that point I was single for a year, and I was so one thing that we haven't really touched on is these strong boundaries that those bad relationships that happened taught me. So I had really strong boundaries and no's with men. And you had to be kind of on a certain level for me to even think about going on a date. And, he came up to me and tried to talk to me, and I literally just walked away from him. And I loved being single. Even though I was actively manifesting my partner, I really enjoyed my life and my friends, and I was there with my friends. So I didn't want to not hang out with them just because this guy is trying to talk to me. So what really caught my attention was, even though I just walked away from him, he just walked right back up and didn't lose confidence in a way.
Yeah. And he applied that pressure, girl.
Yeah, he just he just held his masculine. He didn't get all bent out of shape because I just dissed him. He just came up and asked me another question, and I was like, oh, that was kind of cute. And so we started talking. He quickly grew on me, and he asked me on a date for the next night, and this is what totally won me over. We're like sitting at a sushi dinner, and he goes, my friends say that I got a horseshoe up my ass because this is so lucky. And I'm like, really? So you have the belief that you're just a lucky guy? And he's like, I'm the luckiest guy on earth. And I'm like, this is the mindset I want in a partner. And he just starts talking to me about manifestation and all these things. And I'm like, oh, what books have you read? And he's like, no, I haven't read any books. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, I just do this.
You're like, you should join my book club.
So I tell him, I'm like, oh, I have a book club. And he looks me square in the eye and says, I can't read. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, when I try to read, I have too many thoughts in my head. And so now he only listens to Audible. I'm like, oh, you can listen to Audible. And so now he's a part of book club, obviously, and comes to every meeting and loves it. And he listens to all the books.
Yeah, something I've observed about the two of you is he really does not like or want you being stressed out. He is actively looking for ways to improve your life, make you feel more safe, make life easier for you. And that's truly what a man in his masculine is meant to do for a woman, because it's tough for us out here in this world. It's not a safe world for us. Women are constantly, in danger. So to find a man who's innately a protector is very, very valuable. So how about your life now?
Yeah.
You're my neighbor. I love it. What do you love about your life now?
Oh my God, everything. It's just everything that I've always wanted, everything that I've always dreamed of. Yeah, exactly what you said. He's very much in his masculine. He makes me feel safe. Yeah, he does not want me to be uncomfortable in any way. And if I am, he solves that problem for me. And it just helps me really rest even deeper into my feminine. And there are times where, I'll snap and want to go into my masculine, and I have to remind myself to just let him take the lead and empower him in his masculine. So I think what women do is they start to take the lead, and it disempowers the masculine. So the same man can be disempowered and become not in his masculine based on your own energy. So because I'm able to constantly lean back and settle into my feminine, it allows him to rise up into his masculine and be the leader, the provider, the protector, and that my soul truly craves.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. We're going to wrap this up, and I just wanted to ask you, what do you wish you could tell your younger self, having this life now that you have?
I just got goosebumps. Oh my God, so much. I wish I could just download my brain and give it to my younger self. Yeah. But it took all the trials and tribulations of my younger self to get here. So I think the number one thing would be just chill out. Everything's going to work. Everything's going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you have any tips for our listeners on tapping into their feminine well and calling forth the life that they desire?
Just let that be an intention of yours. If you're a woman and you have this idea of masculine femininity come up, work on it and sit with yourself and journal and meditate and go for nature walks and try to just not plan and move your body and put on music. And there's so many different techniques, and they might feel like a waste of time or like they're not doing anything, but just remember that's your masculine brain coming in. But life on this side is just so sweet, and it's totally worth it.
And then any guidance for the listeners on how to get into or how to lead the relationship that they truly deserve and desire?
I think the biggest thing is to just know what you want. Most people can't manifest because they don't know what they want. So really get clear, what is it that you want? And don't be swayed by outside influences, what you see on Instagram. So again, it takes a little bit of stillness to learn, okay, what is it that I truly need? What are my values? What are my desires? And really get clear on that, and then have a boundaries list of anything that's not that, it's a no. It's not a maybe, it's a no. So having that, you're telling the universe, okay, if I say no to this guy who's giving me low effort, say he's asking me out on a day of, and if you're accepting that, then you're just telling the universe that you're okay with that.
You'll take anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you have to have these strong boundaries. Sometimes you're like, oh, but I'm lonely and I want to go out on the... No, but what is it that you truly want? And what you truly want is to be loved and chosen and protected, you know, not just a date.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes that the Hood Healer on Instagram is freaking awesome. Awesome lady. She says, often the universe will send you a decoy before your desire just to test you. Do you actually want the thing that you're asking for, or will you just take anything right now?
Yeah.
Or, you know?
Yeah, you just got to be strong. You have to say no. You have to know exactly what you want. Say no to the thing that's not. And you will absolutely be gifted. And you'll see that there's something at the end of that.
And finally, any tips for bringing a community together? So for example, like if someone wants to start a book club, how do they start?
You just start it. Just start it. Everything in life, you just do the thing. So yeah, if you're interested in starting a book club, get some friends together and pick a date, pick a book, and just do it and stay consistent with it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be every week. It doesn't have to be reading the book together in the club. It could be like people are reading on their own, and like we do once a month, we get together, we have a party, and people discuss the book. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be anything super overwhelming or daunting. Just truly do it out of the joy of your heart and wanting to bring people together, and I think that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun to be out and talking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything from your background, the slap story. I like that's still like my favorite part probably. But and also, you know, shedding some light on how your life has gone, the hurdles that you've had to overcome, and just the beautiful, amazing, fulfilled life that you're living now. I'm hoping that our listeners can take something from this episode and start applying it to their lives, and hopefully we'll get some feedback. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Stellar Cycles Pod, and you can follow Rasheen. Her Instagram will also be linked in this episode. You can follow San Diego Book Club for ideas for books or see how our meetings go. It's a really, really fun page. And don't forget to download the free grocery guide that I have for you in the link in the Stellar Cycles Instagram. You can go ahead and get a free PDF. It's just based on every single phase of your cycle, a little grocery list for what you should be eating to support your hormones during each phase that you're going through. And if you're feeling generous, please leave a 5-star review and a rating. That would really help the show grow. Till next time, Stellar Cycles out.